I'm Nafi, Sasmi and Rafi. I am originally from Bangladesh. I came to Czech Republic around 5 years ago, and I used to work as a backend developer, and I did my internship in cybersecurity, so I've been all over the place basically. And then I somehow ended up in DevOps by trying to do operational tasks and configured infrastructure as code and things like that, and so gradually ended up being DevOps, and I don't know how. So I will today. Today I will talk about feature flags, but most importantly, this talk is about how we can release features faster and test in production. Now, I'm not crazy. We're really gonna test in production about the features, and how we can achieve that is through feature flags, but there is gonna be some other things that we're going to go through which will help us achieve this. So first of all, what is a feature flag or toggle? I will refer to it as toggle or feature flag, just it's the same thing. So it's basically essentially like a switch or conditional statement or whatever you call it that enables and disables your feature. And yeah, that's a simple term of feature flag. There's nothing complicated about it. You just enable your feature or disable your feature, but mostly in runtime. Now there are toggles for compilation toggles, runtime toggle, but I'm going to mostly talk about runtime toggles or features. So the idea is you want to enable or disable feature in production as you see fit. So let's go to the next one. An example of flags. If you go to Chrome, not many people know this. If you go to Chrome and this URL /flags, you can see all the flags that you actually can enable. These are experimental features, and Google allows you to turn it on and off. So yeah, this is a cool thing. You can actually try to see what feature flags are about, but most of the time, most of the application we use, we don't really see if we are using a toggle or not, and that's the whole point of it. So let's go to Git flow first. Why Git flow? Well, it's important. So as you can, Git flow can work for a lot of people, and it works for a lot of things, and that's great. Linux kernel, I think the developers still use Git flow. And it's good when you have long-living feature branches. It can work for you. But for most of us, what happens is this thing, which is a massive headache, where you start merging code left and right from everywhere. And you can lose track of what you're merging and what are the changes. And what happens is like a merge conflicts everywhere. This is the merge hell, like the picture of the merge hell, and like this is the situation where we don't want to end up. And what we instead want to achieve is release our feature very fast and very quickly without really dealing with all these merge conflicts. So let's talk about trunk-based development. And no, it's not about SVN. So yeah, I'm not out of the room yet. So trunk-based development, basically, it means simply you're pushing to master, or basically near master branch, as what we all call it. And the idea is you release really small bit of code very frequently to the master, and don't really create feature branches that live very long and get very out of sync with your master. So with trunk-based development, you're continuously pushing code to the master and without breaking things, right? So how do we achieve that? And that's where the feature flags will come. Okay. So that's where the feature flags will help us achieve that. So let's look at it. What is trunk-based development? How the flow goes, basically. So you have the trunk and you have the release branches, right? So By the way, this is not a golden rule. Like a lot of times, different companies implement it different ways, but the concept is very similar. Basically, developers commit to the trunk, and you can see a lot of commits, small commits, ideally, very frequently. And then you have that's the green one, the developer committing, and then you have the release engineer thing. That's kind of like a debate whether you need a release engineer or not, but like sometimes companies have developers doing the release engineer task, but yeah, you get the point. And what happens is there is a cutoff for release. So you are committing when your feature is kind of like sort of complete, you go create a release. So that's where you are creating the R, like the releases. And sometimes in some companies it's like automated, and we're going to release every week regardless of if we have a feature complete or not, and that's up to the implementation of how you really have the branching and releasing strategy. But the concept is like very similar. So there is one drawback with this approach is a bad commit can really destroy a lot of things. So it requires like putting more focus on code reviews and making sure you have the guardrails to not really pollute the master too much. And how you can achieve that, it's having proper code owners and code review, enforced code reviews, and really some automated tests before you merge to check if your like code is actually gonna break anything or not. So this is without feature flags. I'm talking about just trunk-based development in the ideology of it, where you just push code to the main branch very frequently. Now let's go back to feature flag. I'm going back and forth so that I can combine together and give you an idea. So feature flag, basically it looks like this. You enable a feature or disable a feature on production. So you can actually start working on your feature and keep it disabled and launch that feature, but it will be disabled. It's called a dark launch, and that's what feature flags are most useful for. So your feature can be in production live, but it's not really, no one can see it, no one has any interaction with it, and it's just there. But you have the ability to switch it on, and that's what the toggles are for, to give you the power to enable a certain feature or disable it. So yeah, feature flags enable you to segment features based on attributes. What I mean by that is, let's say you want a feature that's for German market, let's say, and you only want people in Germany to have this feature. You can really get attributes that the user is from this country, and you can enable this feature specifically for them. Or you have a business unit that you want to release the feature to, and not every single unit. So you can really target the specific customer, or user to test upon. So basically, you can also do canary release. Let's say you want to test your new feature on only 1% of the users. So you can also do that. So feature flags gives you like the flexibility when implemented correctly, of course, to like really test these features in production on a very specific group of people or organization. So here, near to main is like what I'm talking about. It's basically a branch that is very close to main. It's not identical, but not 100%. Doesn't have to be. But it's not like the Git flow where your feature branch is like 4 months old, and it's like you need to really rebase them and merge it to development branch, or not that. Here you are, let's say, creating a feature called red toggle. Let's call it a red button, right? And you are also creating a blue button and an orange button. And this is your main product, the green one. And what you're doing here is you are pushing your new feature, which is experimental or unfinished, or you don't really want to have it in production yet, you can really release it, or some part of it, and then it will be by default switched off state, but you keep on going, you put your blue toggle, you don't really prioritize which feature goes in, or like you don't care about that, you care about getting your feature on the main. And what you really need to be careful with this is testing. And if your feature, like the red button, is really, when you turn it on, is it gonna have some issues with your main product or not? And that is one of the key elements of feature flag, is to test the flag intensively. And that is, you have to do that, otherwise you don't want to end up in a situation where you turn on the feature in the production and it breaks. So this is where you want to do the testing with the green and the red. So the main product with the red button, you want to test it and see if it works. And then like blue with the red and with the main, or just the blue with the main. So you want to do all sort of testing to see if your feature has conflict with the other feature or the main itself. So sometimes it happens that the blue feature will not have any issue with the red feature enabled, but when you enable the orange feature, which works by itself with the main product, but doesn't work with the blue, works with the red. So you can end up with this kind of situation where you need to really prepare and test your features properly. And the idea is to release features into master faster, but doesn't mean you don't really test the features. So that's a key element to it. And earlier I said feature flags are like conditional statements, conditional like if else statement or whatever, but really that is just for the purpose of explanation. In real life, doing this can be a massive issue because you're not creating one feature. Let's say if you're a really small team, like 2-3 developers, yes, probably you can get away with some conditional statement to like lock your feature or have that as a switch. But what will end up happening is when you have too many features, you're going to have a massive like conditional statement in your entire code base that are going to be hard to trace and hard to clean up. And this is called the triangle of doom or toggle hell, which is like the nastiest thing you can do, like to a branch, like it's when it happens, it's extremely difficult to debug what is actually the part of the toggle switch or what is your actual code base. So this is something. This is not how you can create your feature flags. Now, like, how do you really something about the feature flag? So what do you want to use it, right? You can use dependency injection if you're using object-oriented programming languages. Or you can use Python decorator for like controlling the flag. Or you can, there are tons of libraries that actually help you to programming specific, language specific libraries that are there to help you switch this feature flag on and off and manage that in your code base. And data store and YAML file. So basically you need somewhere where you need to know, centralize all your features. What are on, what are off, or like the configuration of the feature. Like some data store that has the list of all the features that you can easily switch on and off. That's like the control panel or mission control for you. And the classical way of doing it is with JSON file or a YAML file, but I will talk about why not to do that. And like I previously said, you need a proper code review, and it's not just a bureaucratic guardrail. You really need it, otherwise your master is going to be polluted. And testing with feature flag is like you have now the ability to do proper A/B testing. If you know, like A/B testing, it's like testing A with B basically, and checking which one is performing better. So you can do A/B testing, and you need to do unit test, functional test, E2E test with all the toggles enabled, disabled, and like I said, combining all the combination of toggles you can imagine. You have to do that and then do a proper end-to-end test so that you know that there are no like you don't break your system when you turn on the toggle. And another thing people do is to have similar name for toggles, and that can actually break things really bad. You really don't want to turn on a toggle X and some toggle is also called X, and they do different things and they can have massive issue. Like it can probably give you a temporary outage, right? Of course you can disable it, but you don't want to do that. There are enough, I guess, letters and numbers that you can use to make it unique. So never make a toggle name similar, or even seem similar so people don't accidentally turn it on. And another thing is the life cycle of toggles. So that's pretty important. Now you are really, let's say you are making a lot of feature flags and toggles. You are expanding, you have hundreds of feature flags. But at what point, you lose control? You have to keep in mind that at some point, those old toggles are not used anymore. Those pieces of code are already in production for a long time, but you still have a toggle for them. And that is not something you want to do. And that's why you need to really consider the life cycle of the toggles, the switches you have. Do I really need it here, or it can be implemented some other way? If it's most likely, if the code is already everywhere, you really don't need it. You need the toggle for it. And semantic versioning, it's for trunk-based development and using feature flag. It really helps. I mean, it should help in every other ways, but the main goal is the semantic versioning is a core component of using trunk-based development and feature flags. And in Workday, we use our build numbers as the versions, as the minor patch version. So, as I said before, YAML JSON files are great, but they cannot monitor your feature usage. So, what I mean by that is, you can really have this YAML and JSON as your centralized way of turning on and off this toggle, but what you miss is the usage data. You really want to extract if feature is how it's performing or how many users are using it. You need to have the usage data. So there are a lot of feature flag specific services like flag service, data store, GitLab I think has a feature for that, but I'm not going to name any tool. You have to find the one that really fits whatever. If you don't have GitLab in your organization, it really doesn't matter. So the tools that help you give you a service to monitor your flags are extremely useful, and JSON files and YAMLs cannot do that. Also, another problem is it starts when the JSONs are getting nested too much. It's hard to debug them, and it becomes a problem to just you don't want to miss YAML structure. You don't have to deal with YAML structure issue when you're just switching off your toggle, and your YAML file can be big if you have a lot of toggles. So that's why data stores are the key. Data store or flag services are really important. Resurrected toggles can be a real nightmare. So old toggles that you probably created, I don't know, 8 years ago, let's say, and you really never decommissioned them, or you don't really need them, you just switch it off and think about okay, I will never need this piece of code, I will just turn it off and I'll forget about it. But it's really not that simple. Something can somehow accidentally turn on that toggle, and 8 years later, your software might not be able to deal with that piece of code and actually can break a lot of things. So you really do not want to resurrect old toggle. And this goes back to the part where I said the life cycle of the toggle is really important. And if you ignore that, that is going to be really a pain point for adopting feature flags and toggles. And I'm going to talk about what happens when this you don't really care about the life cycle of the toggle. And this is a story, you can Google it, it's called 45 Minutes of Hell in Knights Capital. So Knights Capital is a company, it's a well-known fact, I'm not like blaming the company, so you can really Google about it. It's like a capital holding, like a trading company in US. They had a massive amount of like 365 million in cash. So they were giant, they were very big. But what happened was they were working on this new feature called SMARS that takes a lot of the stock of the parent orders from the market and then sends that to the child to process those smaller orders to meet the requirement of the parent. Basically, like a new system to manage their the brokerage application. And they also had something called the Power Peg that developed 8 years ago, and that was present in their code base that basically tracks the child orders and can decide to stop or continue the order longer. So one day, by trying to deploy this Mars, when they deployed it, they accidentally, some code enabled the Power Peg, which was 8-year-old, and it started over trading so much that their stock completely got evaluated. It was putting, I think, 10 times more orders or something than it should have, and that completely bankrupted their company. And this is a real story of what happens if you really ignore toggles. Toggles can be really empowering to release new features and can help you to test in production, but it can also kind of kill you at the same time. So it all depends on how you implement it and if you are following the proper guidelines of the usage of the toggles. So that's about it. I will take questions if you have any questions. So,
that's David, forget from.
What is a reasonable life cycle?
Well, as you can see, the Chrome flags, when you scroll down, there's hundreds of them. And Google is a gigantic company. They can manage that, right? So really, how much toggle is based on the company, like the size of the company you have, the culture you have, how many can you really handle? That's not a fixed number, but a measurement that you need to make to understand, okay, this amount of toggle is too much. One thing one key factor you can look at is when your end-to-end tests are taking way too long to finish. Like when you're doing the end-to-end test with all the toggles on, if it's taking longer than a couple of hours, then you really have too much toggles, right? Your test cannot, your tests are taking too long, or your engineers are clueless about some toggle that's been active. So that's also one of the key factors. But really, there's no fixed number or a golden number you can hit about the toggle. Some companies can handle a lot of toggles because they have hundreds of teams, and some companies, small companies, can only have 6, 7, 8 toggles, and yeah.
Are feature flags always binary, on, off, or can we also be multiple choice?
Ideally, on and off is the best option you should opt for. When you add in that third option, then you're testing, you had on and off, now you have another dimension of testing here.
Yeah.
So you really are gonna have a major headache. of like if you have another part. But why? What scenario are you thinking about that when you?
I'm thinking regional. Like, do I want different features for different region based on the input of the region? So like India one, and then you have Germany and USA.
Not really. Like I would say, okay, let's say you have a feature, let's say red button that you want to give it to India or Germany or Japan, right? You don't want to make that as a toggle input. It should be, the logic should be part of the toggle to handle it. And the whole concept of the toggle on and off is either you activate or deactivate it. And if you want to really do it for multiple clients, you can do one thing. You can clone the toggle, which is a bad idea, which a lot of times they try to do, and put it like a red button Japan, red button Germany, and have toggles. That is like a horrible idea. Or you can have your feature to be dynamically handling that based on the attributes. So that's where the power of the attributes come in. Your config files and how you manage that should be the main part. The feature flags, the switches should be handled by release engineers, and they should only know if you need to turn it on and off. And yeah.
So to react on that, I had a question before, but actually we are now doing some project implementing feature flags, but the goal is to give business, the possibility to switch on and off the features. So do you have an experience with the approach, and like did it go well or bad?
Okay, so yeah, I never had an instance where we give them the direct power to turn on and off the toggle. Usually it's like with the request and approval. The reason is most of the companies manage their toggle at a centralized place, and it's hard to give like a proper ACL or access control to each toggle. If you are able to do that, then great, but there is a security risk. So the security risk is that if the customer can directly turn on and off your toggle, they can probably there are a lot of situations where you are putting untested code on it, right? Your engineers are not in charge of turning it on and off. They can actually shut down there's a new commit, let's say you push to the new feature.
Yeah, but maybe to be more specific, you can imagine a company that sells something over internet, and you can toggle on like Black Friday. You have a toggle that says Black Friday. Let's put a discount of 40% to everything from now. And then if you are bankrupt already, let's put it off now. Yeah, because too many people purchase for too low pricing. Yeah, so this is type of feature flag that business would like to have, and they can react based on marketing campaign stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, Google gives you the ability, right, to turn it on and off. It all boils down to, can you trace the impact of that toggle on and off? Can you really think about the most catastrophic situation where that toggle turned on can do? If it's that Black Friday situation, of course you can give them, or dark, like you are creating a dark mode or something, right? You can give that feature to the user or something like that. But if you're talking about a SaaS product that does a lot of analytics and doing a lot of changes to the databases, inputting and aggregating data, then you should really think about, okay, this toggle, should I give it to the business unit or not? So it all depends on how you can contain the toggle, the functionality of the toggle. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
So the feature flags seem to be increasing the complexity quite massively. So not only do you have to test all the features behind flags separately, I probably also have to test them in combinations.
Yeah.
So it increases the amount of requirements for the testing quite endlessly. And it also means that screw ups will happen more often as the complexity are rises. So what do I get in return for using features? Is it faster feature testing? Or is it more features or more flexibility on whatever?
It's all of those, to be honest. Basically, it's fast. You have the ability to release the features faster, you don't have to have this branch and complete the feature and then merge it and deal with that. You're continuously putting the code in, and also it gives you the ability to test on production, right? The overhead you're talking about, there is like the whole world of SDET engineers that deal with these toggles and the mess of like the mess that the toggles create, right? And you have a lot of testing methodology like contract testing. You can do like toggle contract testing and see, let's say, okay, this combination work, and you can logically assume that, okay, this combination might work, so you can eliminate some of those testing, but really depends on like how your testing strategy and infrastructure is.
So something like bias and metrics testing.
Sorry?
Like the bias and metrics testing?
Yeah,
like
you can
these
do
things
that,
work together, so
yes.
we can, like, assume something else altogether. Okay. And is there any guidance on where probably feature toggles are a good idea, like types of businesses are where this is like seriously bad idea? You can this be like categorized, or like there's like obviously spectrum, but there will be probably multiple categories.
So feature flags are like if you really need to, like, feature flags are probably not a good idea for the Linux kernel, right? They don't really need to do that. They need to have a stable like release or stable enough, right? Or there are some businesses that don't really need to really push features fast and test in production. Like I'm talking about like ancient like legacy applications and stuff. It's hard to do like enable feature flags on those. And really it boils down to the cost of enabling all of this infrastructure versus the return you're getting. If your business primarily like depends on having these features as fast as possible and it gives you market share, then of course you can go for it. Then the cost is justified. But if you're not sure about that, then maybe it's not a good idea.
So it comes down to recognition.
Yes, absolutely. So any other questions?
Yeah, I didn't like the phrase of testing in production. Is the problem is, like, I would better call it like proving in production. Like
Yeah, you can say that.
You should have it tested.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a bit related to the previous question. Like you need to schedule the release of the feature.
Can I share with you a sentence I heard?
Yeah, for blue, green, and
all companies have a dev environment and a production environment. In some companies, we are different environment.
So yeah, to answer that question, it's proving in production basically. You are testing it, but your tests are sometimes like you don't know what your test are like covers, right? Sometimes you miss the point that you need to test, and a lot of the time your unit tests don't catch the bug or something, like your functional test or even your end-to-end test didn't really test that particular part that the user might have actually done that. So you don't really know, so you can call it a testing basically, but of course, as I said, you have to test it. You don't want to instantly kill your company when you turn it on. That's not the point, but if the feature itself doesn't work when you turn it on, you get the metrics and the data from your toggle service or some other way of collecting metrics, and you switch it off. So, does that answer your question?
So you switch it off, you fix it, and you create a new toggle for the...
new company.
No, you don't really.
That's funny.
So, you don't really do that. Like, what some people would think is, okay, now we're gonna push directly to release. No, that's not what we are doing. The whole idea of trunk-based development is you do not push anything to release. Like, what you need to do is fix the feature in trunk, and then sometimes cherry pick it to the release, or really have like a release engineer, someone to you have to really there is no hot that I understand you're talking about hot fix, right? The
No, I'm talking about like the well-managed life cycle of a toggle.
Yeah.
Where it has to be killed or changed for something else. When it becomes another feature.
If your one feature A becomes another feature gradually B, then it's a very bad planning of like feature management.
But it happened.
Yes, that's why you need to really plan and then really figure out this A should do this job, and that's it. That's the goal of that we're gonna reach
But
with
for
this.
example, how it happened with the Lights company. So they had a feature that you apparently never released.
They used it before and they turned it off because it wasn't useful for them anymore, because they had other system they created, or due to some regulation they had to create some other tool to manage their stuff.
So that's where they should have killed the old toggle.
Yes, they should have killed it. Yeah, you can kill it, but it didn't transform into something else. It just was there.
Yeah, that's
It's
what I'm
a
asking. Just
feature.
You kill it and you create a new one. Or don't
Yeah, you kill it, create a new one.
You
Yeah.
remember to put the sticker like don't touch this button.
We shouldn't have these stickers.
Yeah. So yeah, you should. That's the life cycle part where you need to kill it. You really should not make one feature turn into another feature. You should stick with the plan of what the feature actually does, and when you are ready to, when you think that it's no longer needed or it's already in your main line, like the code is like too mainstream, it's like not something that like you need a toggle for, then you either like you have to basically kill that.
What was
Toggle.
the name of this DNA that becomes catalyst, right?
DNA center, catalyst center. Yeah.
So it's not a feature.
It has some story.
How do you manage the situation? So you have to have like a really big picture of what you're testing, right? So your situation is that you have this feature, your release manager pushes it, you have a toggle for it now, you can test this toggle, then it fails, this feature is completely unusable. You return it back, say, okay, you will develop still this feature, but how do you differentiate if it's like the old version of this feature or a new version of this
New
feature?
toggle.
You have this toggle will be will have some flag for it.
So your toggle basically failed, right?
Exactly.
You don't have the need, like you want to fix it. That you don't have to create a new toggle. You just keep on pushing it to the same toggle, fix it, and then switch it back on, like when it's ready.
Okay.
Or you can kill it, and if you think that that feature itself is a flawed feature, then